Before we get started, I would like to mention that the demo for What Happens at Midnight is available now for free on Steam. This video will contain inadvertent spoilers for the demo if you haven't played it, so please check that out first. If not, you're welcome to watch anyway. Let's get started. Alright, so this is my first devlog for What Happens After Midnight, where I'm expanding my Game Jam game into a full game that will be available on Steam. Now, I wanted to get a demo out pretty quick, and initially I thought it'd be a relatively quick process, but not only did I realize I would eventually have to expand the game to include the next level and a bit of the third to show the gameplay loop. There was also quite a lot more smoothing out that had to be done than I thought. Like, I thought I would be sanding down like one of those dodecahedrons into a spear, but it was more like sanding down a cube into a spear. It's a bit of scope creep, but it was inward scope creep, which is actually good. I think people get that mixed up because you do need to make more stuff as you go along. Just you have to make sure you limit yourself to staying within the bounds of your original vision. You need to refine what's there, not add more. Now, when I made the original, as far as my game jam, I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of assumptions and hard coding. It was a very non-flexible system. I was just like having, if it's a revolver, switch to the shotgun. If it's a shotgun, switch to the revolver. I didn't have any expansion for guns available, and a lot of other things like that, where just the code wasn't very clean. You see now I got similar things on reload and shoot. Also added in a couple quality of life features like aiming, which I wanted to keep kind of mild, like in a RE7 or an 8. One of the major things I knew I wanted to do was add post-processing to make things look a lot nicer. Not really even doing that much, but it helps a lot. I'll show you the difference. Now see, we have this, and it's kind of milky and muted. The colors don't pop. And what I wanted to go for was a sort of, not like VHS, but something that feels sort of like a film from the 90s, not like a found footage VHS tape with that's been rubbed with 20 magnets. And this here we have the much crisper lines. The colors pop a bit more. There was also a bit of performance issues. Like I explained in Spider Gunman, about the collider having all the layers checked and causing a lot of lag on the enemies. Had the same problem, I fixed it again. The original was made before Spider Gunman. Terrible oversight. I also changed the lights here. It was one big point light into a spotlight, because apparently it's only a 6 of the processing power. Now, it did look kind of weird at the top without a point light, so I did put one up there, but it shouldn't be affect anything outside this range, so it shouldn't need that much processing power, I think. I'm still kind of new, I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's okay if it doesn't have very big a range, because nothing's gonna, and neither of them cast shadows, so should be good there. Next thing is I was basically using this clock as a level controller, and the first level I had to leave like it is, but I decided to make like more general versions of that can be used for different levels. So now we have a new level controller. Controls like midnight start. Says when enemies die. One thing I had to add was I added encounters that happened before midnight, and it felt wrong without music, so I had to get the system to update music when they're is and isn't enemies. I also clear old enemies from random encounters when midnight starts. So I'm updating to things like the game mode and the character, their level number. I also have on the clock doing level specific interactions. Like in the store, all the lights turn off at midnight, so we're doing that. I also have it to where I can up to do a sound at every minute. So far, I only think I'm going to use it in the store, but maybe I'll do it somewhere else. And we also have a new wave system. So when an enemy dies, they call this, and we check for if the wave has ended. And then we spawn a new wave, and we call all of our different. I have the different enemy types as different actors this time, and also have them on different spawners. I'm not sure how good that idea was, but we're doing it anyway. So we just call different types of spawns to spawn if their level num is, and their wave number is the same. I probably could be better on this organization here. So I wanted to do this little sort of jump scare before you get the money, which also added a key item system. It's not particularly interesting. This just marks a bool for what number item is, and I have it set to 3 items per level so far. But I have a sort of scare slash surprise encounter associated with this. So you get like the mannequins, you get the creepy one, there's the shadows. People think you're gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be this one. You got this creep one at the end, but it's not the mannequins. And it's also sort of a little joke is that it's the bean cans and it's the little guys. So I had this thing to turn whatever model into an enemy. We got this thing to basically it starts out with the default cubes. And I actually don't have to have the cubes visible, so it can work as just a spawner without using the models. We also have a tripwire. Player passes it, they spawn whatever. And 6 spawn points. So they're not especially attached to the models. And if we're not using all 6, we destroy the unused ones. We set our spawn points to wherever I post the spawn points. Player is the tripwire. We spawn the number of monsters we have ready to spawn. We destroy the models associated with them. And then we spawn our monsters. Have the 4 we have so far. Before we get into the next thing, I also updated the pickups so that I want the player to get some stuff for free if they manage to get through. They don't get the rifle ammo in the full game. And this is just 6 in the full game. Anyway, so for the 3rd level, I want them to have at least the revolver, of course, although I don't know how they get through without the revolver. I just do it just in case. Shotgun with 6 and an empty rifle if they don't already have everything. So, and these destroy themselves if they already have them. So, if you have everything, you're not going to see any of this. That includes the text. There's also a phone dialogue, which it just says the ringing and pressing 1 to answer. It's not very interesting. But next we have the grenades. I'll explain what this is later. Obviously our gun's ready to be set visible, not visible. But here we have the grenades. And this is just one model. It moves up and down. It moves up and down. Grenades actually in real life have random timers, so I made it random between 2 and 3 seconds. It was originally like 2 to 4, but that was way too difficult to use. So like once the button's being held down, we're recording the timer that we're using the grenade for. This moves the model. Check for grenades, of course. We also check we're aiming. Like that's how it works in the game. Yeah. And so either when the time runs out or we let go, the model is made invisible. And I'll do a little magic trick and replace it with the actual grenade that has momentum and explodes. It receives the time we had on how long we held the pin. It does a trace for things that can be hit with that can be hit by the grenade. Player damage and invader damage works different, which suboptimal, but that's just how I set it up in a hurry, and I'm too lazy to change it. And spawn the explosion and sound. I also wanted to add a light ring to show the area of effect the grenade has, but I'll do that in the final game. I don't want to update the demo until I have at least a couple things to fix. And hopefully I'll get some feedback from the demo, so I know what needs to be improved. And we have our area of effect. It kind of needs to be kind of big because you can't reliably cook them too well. Let's test it on the enemies. And of course it also works on yourself. So when I was testing the supermarket, I found that these hallways could be kind of a problem for enemies body blocking you. I did eventually make the hallways significantly wider. They were only about half as wide. But I did also want another solution just in case, and I think later in the game I'm going to give you an upgrade so it's a bit more of a viable attack. I added in the kicking. So if you remember, I mentioned the spear. Originally I had it so that this would just give you the prompt, but then I realized once I spawned the capsule trace to check for enemies that I wanted it to be able to affect enemies further than when I can first instigate it. So I changed that you can't instigate it until they're in the spear, so that way you can't kick them till they're close, but you can still, but the kick affects them farther than when you can first instigate it. Simple check, just make sure you know the enemies are there. The actual kicking action, do the sound. Make sure you can't spam kick. Clear a list of enemies. Check for enemies. Make the list of enemies. For every enemy, do the kick. Basically the same as we did in Spire Gunman. Now you'll have to trust me, I'm pressing F, and you'll notice I don't have the Shakespeare yet. Here when I get the prompt, we'll see that it's much bigger and is farther than when I can instigate kick. Sort of random thing I want to mention. I had this outside, and basically just to show you can't go outside, had this bomb event that shows a bomb falling. Yeah, it's just always there, but you can't see it until it drops. Anyway, so this just drops for the visual and kills you instantly. Anyway, so what I actually want to talk about is the fog. I have these things from the special effects pack I have. I'm not quite satisfied with them. Basically, I have them drop down onto the floor, and some areas aren't as foggy as they should be. I was afraid of putting like too many to make it laggy. I don't like how it's like always falling. If anyone has a good tutorial on how to do like a cloud of fog, and not just like a general overall area fog, I would like to know that. So the last thing is the new enemies. These guys are just small and move faster. There's not much to them. They were actually a little stronger than I anticipated. They only have 1 health, but because they're very fast, they can keep you from healing. So I had to use them a lot less than I thought I could. Next we have the big guy. More health, but he doesn't have the aura. I know it shows the aura, but that's just old stuff. It doesn't. That's just because I cloned it. I disabled all that. Instead, he uses weapons. So what I got here is a little animation from Mixamo playing the sound. And then I have like a series of 3 checks for hitting the player. Beginning, middle, and end. I should probably be more thorough, but it seems to work relatively well. It never seems like he should have hit me and didn't. I also had to make these taller than I thought I would, because they have to handle slopes. So we have there, doing the 50 damage and throwing out 3 capsules. Anyway, as you can see, I said they're taller than you think they need to be. On the next thing, I have these boxes that I want to make sure the player can't use to sort of cheese the enemies. And so I handled it by giving them these like invisible platforms that only they can stand on. They basically only collide with the enemy layer, and a couple of the basic collisions, like visible, I think how to work. I also had these trigger boxes to tell when an enemy's on, and I had to make sure I was keeping track of how many were on, so it's not like one leaves while another is on and it turns off. I also had to do that with the music fade. One thing about these is that these got cramped kind of quickly, and so I had to really think about how to do them in a very minimal fashion. I maybe could have handled it by like having the enemies like shoot you with projectiles that track or something. I don't remember exactly how this came to me. I kind of thought it's like an interesting and surprising solution. Like player thinks they outsmarted them, and oh no, they're just making the little bridge. I definitely think I'll put this type of thing in less cramped areas, because I originally just designed the jumping puzzle not thinking about it. So I'll do better on that. So that's it. That's the last thing. So please check out the demo if you haven't already, or tell others about it. Thank you to anyone who likes, comments, or subscribes. That's it.